Hi there. This is going to be a series of 4 videos about the ourChecklists application. It's going to be sort of the help for that. So this first video is going to have a general look at the ourChecklists, what checklists can do, how you can use them, and then we'll do a deeper dive in the second video about the design of checklists, and then we'll look at in the third video analytics associated with those checklists. And then finally, in the fourth checklist, we'll look at more on the administrative management functions for ourChecklists. Okay, first I'm going to show signing into ourChecklists.com. So you can see here I'm on the ourChecklists.com page. I'm not signed in. It's just a simple splash screen, tells you what it does. So the main capabilities of ourChecklists is do basic checklist management, support for teams, so both from the access and visibility point of view, and from the collaboration point of view, where multiple people can work on the same checklist at the same time, and then finally on analysis of the resulting checklists. So let's sign in. I'm going to sign in as kind of the most basic type of user, I'm going to be called member at ourChecklists.com in this case. And when I first sign in, it shows you checklists that are assigned to me. So I've got one checklist out there called ourChecklists for requirements management. And you can see here I've got a fairly simple menu just because I'm signing as a basic user, where I can go back to the home page. I can see my checklists. That's the page I'm on now. I can do a search for checklists across the teams that I have access to, a view of my teams, a view of templates that are available to create new checklists, about page, my profile information, and then the log out. Okay, so let's have a look at the checklist. So I'm going to click on the checklists, and this first checklist I go into is an example of where I'm using a checklist, in this case for CMMI requirements management, to review, say for this project, how well did we meet in CMMI there's an area called Dev 1.3 and requirements management practices, and here's the things that you would normally complete when you're doing requirements management for a project. And in this case I'm using the checklist to check those off to make sure I'm meeting them, and then later on I can also show you scoring. And then for each of these items here, I can have additional information about requirements management to help the person filling this in. So for example, here's an example of a video out on YouTube about CMMI 1.3 requirements management, help someone get introduced to what CMMI requirements management is looking for. And then there's also a specific markdown document that describes in more details what the requirements management area is about. Under that I have, in this case, 5 requirements management checklist items, and I can also go into and see more details about these checklist items. So if I go into the first area about understanding requirements, there's a description there that has a bit more information about that particular checklist item, but there's also things like this where you can have resources associated with it. And again, you can have resources that are more involved documents, links to files, could be videos out on YouTube. So if we open up this one, we see there's a more detailed description of this particular practice area and what's expected if you're going to check this one off. In this case, for this checklist item, it's also been set up to require evidence files to be submitted along with checking something off. So before I can check this off, I have to show evidence that I meet this requirements. And again, this is part of design, which is in the next video, when setting up checklists and checklist items, what things are required and even how results are shown. So if I click on this, it takes me out to the evidence that I included with this showing example of requirements that were used in this project. I'm going to go over and now sign on as a administrator, so that's someone who has a lot more rights. There's also team managers and team reviewers who have different sets of rights for what they can do and what they can see for different checklists. In video 4 I'll go into in more depth about what these different roles are and what particular access and visibility they have. So I've opened up another browser session here, just gone to ourChecklists.com. I'm going to log in as a different user, so hit login. This time I'm going to log in using Google's authentication rather than email authentication. This logs me in by default with my Google user code. You see it drops me into my checklist, but because I'm a different user, I have a view of different checklists that have been assigned to me. So I've got 4 checklists, whereas this user over here only had 1 checklist assigned to them. But we do both share access to our checklists, REQM. So let me go in there, and we both see the same thing. So this is an example of collaboration using our checklist. So if, for example, we're working together on this, we may be on the phone together, and I may do things like think this isn't really ready, so I can click that off, and you'll see here that the view that the other user was updated automatically to reflect that, and they can also click it back on, and we see this user over here's updated view is updated as well. Same thing can happen for checklist items. If I go in here and just write some more information against it. You see, as soon as I updated that field over here, it was updated over on the other users as well, and that can be as many users as you like. Signed in at the same time, so it could be the whole team working on a checklist at the same time, being able to see changes made by different team members, comments made by different team members, files being uploaded by different team members. Our checklist can also be run as a PWA or progressive web application on a mobile phone. Here you see an example of where our checklist is now on my desktop on my iPhone. I can click on that, it fires it up just like a normal application, brings up the our checklist application. I can log in, just go through the normal sign in. Also supports in this case, Apple's authentication with a fingerprint. So I sign in, get taken to my same list of our checklists. I go into that checklist. I can see it on the phone. You see it's been sized for a screen with on an iPhone. So fewer columns, more vertical orientation, which is all part of the PWA. It also works offline in this mode. Finally, let's have a quick look at some of the other things you can do in our checklists. But I'll go into more depth on some of these things like design and analytics in the subsequent videos. So I'm back at my checklist. I'm signing in as the administrator in this case, so it's kind of the super user, just so we can see all the different capabilities in our checklist. So we've seen my checklists. There's checklist search. So say I'm just interested in all the checklists from the sales team. I can go in and get a picture of all those checklists and where they are. And if you're a manager or a reviewer, you can get different views, but the visibility is tightened down just into the teams where you're a manager or a reviewer. Some of the other things, you can see all the teams in the system, so you can set up the system, have different teams. If you're in an enterprise, you may have different departments or different teams where you want them to have specific rights, and different administrators of different checklists in those teams. There's also a list of templates. I'll show that more in the design, where you can set up once you've got a successful checklist that you want to reuse, you can set it up as a template, and then anyone can create a new checklist based on that template. It also maintains information about different areas of those checklists, and even checklist items, so you can do analysis across specific checklist items. So you might be interested in what's documentation like in all our requirements management checklists, and just do a report on those things. You've also got data visualizations. So again, you can say, just have a look at a specific team. I'm just going to look at the sales team again. Get a view of that sales team checklist, just to counter them, in this case by category. You could also look at it by team. They're all going to be in the sales team. You can also look at them by status of the checklists. Instead of counts, we can also look at the scoring on those checklists. So there's a scoring mechanism where a score out of 100% is given to each checklist based on how well the team did at marking off or checking off items. And you can also give items ratings, so that also comes in to be a part of the score. So you could have a checklist that's a mixture of checklist items to check off, as well as ratings given to that particular checklist. More in video 3 about data visualizations, data extracts. Some of the supporting functions, again, a lot of these are just available to administrators or to users who have specific access to some of these functions. So a list of categories. So that's useful when you have different groupings of checklists used in, say, an organization. And even if that organization isn't a commercial one, it could be a club or something like that. So if you're a fishing club, you may have categorized checklists, say, by fishing, another group by boat prep, another one by just specifically to fly fishing. So and you can use this categories to group your checklists to make it easier to find checklists and templates, and do analytics based on particular areas that you're interested in. Resources, so this is a list of resources that have been set up. So resources is any information that will support a checklist. So there's things, as I showed before, there's things like YouTube videos that you could have as a resource. So here's an example of one. Just runs as a YouTube.
Welcome to the No BS
video, so I could associate that with a certain checklist or checklist item to help someone, give them more information about how to perform that checklist or checklist item. Some of the other things you can have is just external files, as I showed before. You can have markdown language documents. So in this case, you can just edit it and view the markdown that you've done. So it just kind of gives you a nicely formatted document that you can have associated with things. You can also have links to external resources, just a simple URL. As an administrator, you've given access to being able to manage other users. So here's our member user that we looked at before, and this is where you can set up particular capabilities that those users have. So can manage teams, can manage categories, can manage resources, can manage templates. There's some admin utilities. I'll go more over that in video 4 about some special utilities to clean up things. It's an about box where information about how you can contact me, the version of the system. You can look at your profile. One thing to be aware of is if you're editing your profile, you can't update your own roles. That can only be done by someone else who has administrator access. So you can't sort of up your capabilities just by going to your profile. One thing you can do is associate a new photo with your profile. You can also see things like when you were last logged in, and some technical information. And finally, there's a log off button. So that's just a quick journey through our checklist, but we'll go into more depth, especially in the next videos.